Hello, I'm Gabriella with Beating Type 1, and this video is about um, why people have type 2 diabetes. Why do people have type 2 diabetes? First of all, I'm a type 1. Let's get that straight. I'm a type 1, okay? Type 2 diabetes is not a person's fault. Yes, someone, you can control whether you exercise or, eat healthy. You can pretty much control that. Most people can control that. You control what you buy at the grocery store, what you eat and stuff. Well, yeah, most people, can control whether they go exercise and they eat right and stuff. But here's something that is a new concept of which I'm trying to raise awareness about is, type 2 can be managed with just diet and exercise and just changing lifestyle habits in most cases, in a lot of cases. But let me tell you something. So my grandfather was a judge, and he healthy all his life. He exercised regularly, he ate very healthy, and he was very, very healthy. He was strong, and he was just top of his game. He was totally top of his game, and he was 62 when he was 62 when he retired as a judge, and he, just a few months after he retired, he got in a car accident. He was wearing his seatbelt, and this was back in 93. And keep in mind, the seatbelt systems in 93 sucked, and they still could be better. But they really sucked in 93. They didn't have an automatic locking system or whatever. So, he was paralyzed, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. He could not move his arms, he could not move his legs. He was completely paralyzed. What he could do is, and that's just about it. He could go like that with his arm, or like that, a little bit, but really he couldn't move. He was a quadriplegic. And, most paralyzed, when people say they're paralyzed, usually they lose their legs. They lose the ability to control their legs. My grandfather lost everything. But about a couple of years after he was paralyzed, and keep in mind, he was in top shape when he was paralyzed. And, when you're, when you're paralyzed, you can't really exercise. If you can't move, you can't really exercise. So type 2 diabetes was just kind of a given. He was gonna get it because it ran in the family, and, it's with all that other, I don't quite know all the details of his paralysis, but my point is he could not exercise. He could not move. He could not feed himself. He couldn't be at the point. He couldn't do anything. He married a nurse. My grandmother took care of him for the rest of his life, which was 15 years. He died, and he's passed away when he was 78 years old. He was very old, living quadriplegic. That's like amazing. 78 and quadriplegic. That's good. And the thing is, though, he was fully mentally there, completely intellectual genius. He was fully there, completely there. He used to, teach me my math homework when I was in, 6th and 7th grade. He used to, help me out with my homework and stuff. Yeah. So, anyway, enough about him, but my point is, he could not physically exercise, therefore, how is that his fault if he has type 2 diabetes? It's not. Okay? So I'll give you another example. My grandmother, she was type 2 as well. She lived a generally healthy lifestyle, and then she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and just slightly before she was diagnosed, actually probably a year before she was diagnosed, she was a nurse, and she knew this was diabetes. But, she had 4 kids, she didn't really exercise that much, and then my grandfather was paralyzed, and, you know, this was he was paralyzed, you know, years after my mom and uncles were raised, but, you know, my grandma, she stopped really taking care of herself, and she, you know, she ate out a lot, and she didn't eat very healthy, and she didn't really exercise, but if she exercised and taken better care of her living style, she probably could have avoided type 2, but she couldn't, and she got it, and she ended up on insulin. She couldn't manage it. For a few years she managed it with diet and exercise, but then, you know, she had to eventually go on insulin. And type 2s are generally not insulin dependent, but all type 1s are insulin dependent day 1 because their pancreas is done and they don't have any insulin. Type 2, you generally have some insulin that is being produced. Whether your body is able to use it or not is determined, you know. So I'll do a video on the difference between type 1 and type 2. Diabetes, obviously. But basically my point is, you know, it's not exactly like, it's not like, it's your fault you have type 2 diabetes. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I'm going to give you one last example, and this is a very, very common example. So, some people with type 2 diabetes, you know, a lot of people with type 2 diabetes, a lot, I'm not sure what the exact terminology would be, whatever, but some people with type 2 diabetes suffer from depression, and, you know, a lot of depression medications can cause weight gain. No matter what you do, it is very difficult to lose weight when you're on these medications. I know from personal experience. I am sharing with you that I am on a medication. I'm not going to say the name. I am on a medication that makes it very difficult to lose weight. And it happens to be for depression. And I will probably be on the medication for the rest of my life because I cannot produce certain brain chemicals. I was born with something where my brain doesn't produce certain chemicals, so I have to take it by a pill. And the medication I generally treats depression, but I actually have a chemical imbalance. Long story, don't want to hear it, trust me, it's real boring. And I have struggled with my weight since I've been on that medication. And honestly, if I didn't have type 1 diabetes already, I might have had type 2 diabetes. Because I am slightly overweight, and I am aware of that. And I am overweight, and I may have gotten type 2. But here's the thing. I exercise, I walk 3 miles 5 days a week, and I eat a very healthy and very good diet. You know? Does that mean I don't ever have ice cream? Maybe I have ice cream once every month or so, maybe 5 times in the summer. But I mean, I don't generally eat crappy. I eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of stir fries, tofu, and stuff. I don't eat meat. I think it's disgusting. But anyway, back to the point. So my point is, type 2 diabetes is not necessarily someone's fault, and it isn't their fault. And I mean, do people choose? Maybe, you know, maybe if people are, it may come across as it's their fault, but, you know, people don't just sit on the couch and not exercise and just eat like a, you know, eat fast food and eat all that, you know, processed food. They don't do that because, ooh, I'm too lazy, you know. They definitely have some reason, and it is a valid reason. You know, what if a mom is like a single mom, she's got 1 or 2, 3 kids or more, and, you know, she's working overtime to support, or vice versa, a single dad, or, you know, or a wife or husband, a spouse is sick, and the other spouse is trying to make up for the medical bills and all that stuff. You don't know. You don't know what is going on with these people's lives and why they have developed type 2 diabetes. But what my point is of this video is, don't just assume that just because someone has type 2 diabetes, they're just a lazy pig. Don't assume that, because that's not true in any case. Can type 2 diabetes be prevented? Yes, it can. But when you say yes, it can, well, look at my grandfather. He couldn't move. That couldn't be prevented. You know, there are so many multiple reasons why people have diabetes, type 2. And it's not necessarily their fault, you know. So in the end, what I'm trying to say here is, well, I'm really tough with my hands today. People have type 2 diabetes for different reasons, and in some cases, it cannot be prevented. And you know, you don't know. So we can wrap it up here. You don't know if, you know, they have depression or other issues. You don't know if they have a physical disability. You don't know that. You don't know what is going on in their life and why they have diabetes. So type 2 cannot always be prevented. So yeah. So next time you think about saying to someone type 1 or type 2, oh my gosh, why don't you just exercise and lose weight? Shut up before we slap you across the face. That's really what we want to do. See you in my next video on emotions with type 1 diabetes and the lovely comments we get. See ya.